Welcome to Newt's Excel Tips. In this episode, we're going to talk about the uses of Microsoft Excel, some basics about it, and how to organize information within Excel. Now, the uses I'll talk about is wide-ranging. Excel can be kind of intimidating, especially if you have no reason to use it, but you might find that there's a lot of things in your life that could actually really benefit from keeping it organized in Excel. So let me talk about some uses about daily life and then maybe your professional life. So if you're going out with some friends and you have one person who purchases everything but expects everyone to pay them back, you can use Excel to break down everyone's part of the receipt. You can weight how much they spent with the taxes and with the tip in order to figure out how much everyone owes you. Maybe you are doing budgeting and you want to know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. You can break it up into different categories that you want to spend every month and then how much you actually spent. You can even color code it automatically so that if you go over or under your budget, that it lets you know using colors. If you work with a lot of data, Excel is a great tool for managing that data, not just the raw data, but also making graphical representations of that data, as well as doing statistical tests on it. Or maybe you're monitoring something. So in this workbook, there were 11 different birdhouses, and every single column is a different day that these birdhouses were checked. So you can organize a whole bunch of data in a really easy to find place. There's tons more uses of Excel. There's a lot more advanced uses of Excel, but you can integrate Excel and make life a little bit easier using it. So let's just talk about some basics. So first off, an Excel document, so to speak, is called a workbook. So the entire window is a workbook. And within Excel, there are multiple worksheets. That's what these tabs are down here at the bottom. There's a little plus sign where you can add more tabs, and you can right-click on them and delete them if you don't want these tabs. You can rename them, you can color code them. So the tabs are called worksheets. And so the current worksheet we're in is basics. Excel is essentially a big table. You can see that here. We have multiple cells, we've got columns, we've got rows. So our columns use letters, and if you keep going, if you ever needed a whole bunch of columns, you can see that even after you pass Z, we just start doing AA, AB, AC, etc. We also have rows, which are numbered. And then if you click a particular cell, like this cell, it has a location. Its location in this case is column D and row 4. So the name of this cell, the name of this cell is D4. This one is F4. This one is G1, etc. So a basic kind of naming convention of these cells. Now, with these kind of columns and rows, you might find that you have a lot of information. So if I want to write Newt's Excel tips, you can see that my text is going past this cell. And so it might be helpful for you to resize your columns and your rows. So in between the columns, there's a line, and when you hover your mouse over it, your cursor changes. And if you click and drag, you can change the size of not just your columns, but also your rows. You can also have Excel automatically do this. So if I want this C column to be the exact size of my contents, I can click between C and D and I can double click. Now that didn't make much of a difference because I already had it close. So let me try that again. So I don't want C to be this large. I'm going to double click and it automatically resized it for me. If you've used other Microsoft products, everything here in the top left is pretty similar to what you see in Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint, as well as other Microsoft programs. Ways to change the font, to style that font, to center it, etc. But you can also see there's a lot more functions that we'll talk about in later videos. The last thing we'll talk about in this video is just organizing. So here I have just a bunch of data. It's actually all the same data presented differently. The very first thing I should say is never, ever, ever, ever just put information into Excel without labeling it, without saying what this information is. One, I've renamed this worksheet to call it organization. I knew I was going to talk about organization. Excel defaults and says sheet 1 and sheet 2. Rename those. But then also when you have numbers or even text, you should write what those numbers are. So for example, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, what is that? Well, that's the plant number. Okay, these numbers below it, what are those numbers? Maybe you remembered it right now, but what if you open this up in a week, in a month, in a year? Are you still going to remember? And this information was plant height. And specifically, I'm going to put units on here. This was measured in centimeters. Again, in the moment, you might have remembered that, but you were probably going to forget. Now you notice, you see how my text got cut off. Now if we look up here, this is the formula bar. The formula bar is repeating everything that's in your cell. But what you notice is that the formula bar is not bound by constraints of cell size. It has everything listed in here. Even though when I look at C4, it just says plant num. But the formula bar is telling me, hey, there's actually a whole bunch of stuff in here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and automatically resize column C so that I can actually see everything that are in these cells. Now the data over here is the same data. So I'm just going to go ahead and label this data. So plant number and plant height in centimeters. And again, the text is larger than my cells. So I like having my columns wide enough to see everything. So I'm going to resize D and resize E, doing the double click to automatically resize them. So here we have the same two data sets, but one of them is organized horizontally and the other one organized vertically. The better way to do it in Excel is to organize things vertically. Most functions do work both in horizontal and vertical format, but not all of them. But all of them do work vertically. So it's just good to keep it organized vertically. And as you can see, that you can fit a lot more data vertically than you can horizontally. So that's another benefit. If you need to add more data, like I have over here, I have plant number, plant height in centimeters, and I also have color. It's really easy just to add another row, add another column to this data and continue to add to that. So that's it for this first video. Hopefully you've learned some ways that maybe you can use Excel in your everyday life and some of the basics to knowing what Excel does and what exactly it is.